The January 24th special meeting of Upper Darby Township Council is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we please have a moment of silence for prisoners of war and those that are missing in action? Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Billups, can you please take the attendance?
Councilor Wagner is excused. Councilor Brandis. Here. Councilor Andrusko.
Here.
Councilor Blackwell, sorry.
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Heyman.
Here.
Councilor Banto.
Yes.
President Tunis.
Here.
Secretary Billups is here. Councilor Minnick.
Here.
Councilor Silva.
Here.
Councilor Wentz.
Here.
We have the Honorable Mayor Ed Brown. We have Solicitor Kel Kennedy. I'm sorry, I do not have my glasses, so forgive me. Acting CAO Dobbins. We have Ms. Ballas, who is serving as the role of municipal clerk. We have Treasurer Heyman via Zoom. We have Officer Bateman, Officer Coella, Officer Frio, Sergeant Lou Guerreri. Hi. And of course, all of you, the residents of Upper Darby. Thank you.
This is the time set aside for the public to speak. When you hear your name, please come up to the microphone and state your name for the record. As noted on the agenda, Upper Darby residents have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Residents are prohibited from making threats, using profanity, or acting in a manner that would impede or prevent the conduct of business of the meeting. Any person who attends the meeting and makes remarks, disrupts, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting after receiving a verbal warning may be required to leave the meeting at the discretion of the council president. Public forum should not exceed 30 minutes. As you're aware, residents have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. If a resident chooses to ask questions, they are voluntarily giving up their time for a response. This means that the 3-minute timer will continue to run no matter who is speaking. The timer will be clearly displayed on the screen here based on some feedback from residents. So thank you, Secretary Billups.
First, we have Tyson Combs.
Testing. Good evening, everyone. Tyson Combs, 6830 Ludlow. I just wanted to give a statement tonight. I started coming to these meetings about 8 years ago, and when I first came, I saw members of the board that I never seen in my life, never knew, never saw on my block or anything. And I dreamed of a day where I would see people that I actually knew on the council, and I'm glad to see that today. During the time years ago, I remember issues being addressed or anything being addressed to the council by the residents, and it was met with great demand, tackled head on immediately. And last week, as I watched on the internet, I saw a lot of the residents ask questions and things that it seemed were like pushed to the side. And I look forward to this 4 years of seeing a lot of you on council. And I just ask that the relationships between Ms. Duggan, Mr. Rosari, Rich Blah, I forget her name right now, but just the relationships be some way mended and some things move forward, and we don't repeat the same cycle that we seem like we had last year. for the most part, I felt like last week was an example of what make it be residents beginning to feel like they're voiceless and they can't come up and speak or can't have questions answered. And I like to see that worked out or cease and better relationships built, especially for the few people that sit here that have been coming for as long as I can remember. And I feel like they are representatives of this community just as much as you guys are. And I would like everybody to be treated with respect and decency. And that's all I want to say. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Next is Joanne Namavag.
Joanne Namavong. I just want to read out of the Home Rule Charter, section C311B, public meetings, number 2. Up to the first half hour of all public meetings shall be devoted to a public forum where concerned persons may address the council. Concerned persons. We have a lot of concerned people that come up to this podium, one of which is trying to, this council and the solicitor and the president are trying to shut him up, and I don't appreciate it. We know who we're all talking about. It's not right, just as in light of what Tyson just said, you should care about what Rich thinks. You shouldn't try and silence him. He works hard in this community, and whether he gets a paycheck or not from anyone in this township, he's doing very vital work in this township. And to say that he doesn't have a right to speak because he doesn't have a house here is ridiculous. But that, you know, it just, think about that, because it's not what this was supposed to be. Second, I just have to address this, the meeting we're in right now. I'm very disappointed in, after what Becky said last week about many of you being just yes people, and you're just going to vote for something without knowing what you're voting for. We saw that last week. You guys amended that ordinance on January 2nd, and not one person noticed. That's bad, and it's very embarrassing, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Next is John Rosari.
Good evening, John Bizzari. First off, I just want to say, and this is not related to what we're here for today, but I do want to give credit where credit is due. And with the most recent snow removal, I think the township did an excellent job. For the first time in 6 years, my street was fully cleaned, where in the past it was not. So good job. Secondly, I do want to echo what Ms. Namavong had just talked about, that, 11 people set up on this dais, including additional people, and no one during last week's meeting identified that there was an issue with the tax ordinance, and we went forward with it. Now, I know, Mayor Brown, you mentioned that there are mistakes and mistakes happen, and we're all human, and that's the case. You indicated and you were quoted as saying that you put a control in place to make sure that that's not happening. Perhaps you could give us some insight into what is that control that's in place. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next is John DeMasi.
Good evening, Council. John DeMasi. Quick question on the ordinance tonight, because I know we've been through a number of these budget hearings and everything. Is there any way that we can, okay, so I know there's a process, it's advertised, it's put up, and then I know that's not my time. There's no way that I've already been up here.
Sorry about that. Can we please restart
Yeah,
that
there's-
3 minutes?
Yeah, I
please?
was like, wow.
I apologize about that, Mr. Demasi.
Okay, no problem, thank you. So is there any way, look, I know we're trying to get things done. Is there any way, because this really needs to be considered, is there any way that we can go through this, go through the next meeting, pass it, and then like come back to it afterwards? Or do we have to go straight through? Is there a way, like, we go through the advertisement, we go through the next meeting, vote on it, and then come back? Can we do that? Buy us some time here? Is that on the budget ordinance?
I'm sorry, can you just restate your
Yeah,
question?
so is it possible, because I know that we have to go through all this and we're trying to push this through. I think there's like the 14th of February to get the rates out. Is there a way that we can go through this, we go through the process, pass it, and then does that buy us some time to come back and revisit what's, the millage and all that stuff? Is there?
No, there's no flexibility. I mean, we're having a special meeting tonight, and we have to have 7 days between the time that we do this meeting and before we actually adopt it so that we can get the tax bills out on time. There's financial ramifications if it goes past that. So time is of the essence, and that's why we're having this meeting tonight, sir.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So can you please explain the difference between that and what's happening with Ordinance 3143 that was passed and it still hasn't been allocated, and now we're going to go back to that ordinance and take money back? Is that something that you can address?
Those ordinances were prior to me sitting in this chair, so I'm talking about the ones that we're passing now. As I stated, I think at the last 2 meetings now, after my review, after the administration's review of those ordinances and the priorities for the township, then those will be addressed.
So
that will be addressed.
So I guess it's your position then that things that happened before you can be readdressed and changed, and things during your administration cannot. That's what I'm getting from that. I want to add one more thing on something that's been said earlier, and I hope that everybody understands that if you are in favor of these changes to who can speak, even though nothing is changed in the Home Rule Charter, you are now on the list of people who are trying to curtail speech. I don't think that's a list that anyone wants to be on historically. You are now reducing free speech and changing a provision of the Home Rule Charter that actually says, as was read, persons. Is that really the person you want to be? Do you want to be the person that said, no, I want fewer people speaking, even though the Home Rule Charter says that person has a right to? And if you do want to be that person, put out a press release, go to your constituents, say, I'm the person that stopped someone from speaking because I didn't like what they were saying. Own it. Be that person if that's really how you feel. If not, I think you need to reconsider what you're doing with our ability to speak at these meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Honorable Mayor Ed Brown.
Thank you, Council President Tunis. Good evening. As you are aware, this special meeting was called because there was a clerical error in the tax levy ordinance that was, mentioned by several residents, passed by council last week. I said that when I was sworn in that I would not be perfect and mistakes would happen, and I'm grateful for my staff and fellow officials that this error was caught before any effect could be felt by the community. Let me be clear. I am the mayor, and the buck stops with me. I take full responsibility for that mistake, and I've already moved to rectify the matter. Hence, we're having this meeting and another one in 7 days. Additional internal controls have been put in place to decrease the chances of this happening again. Also, I want to personally give a status update on the 2022 audit. I know that's been asked about at several meetings. I know that you were informed recently that it is complete. That is a fact. However, it is still in the hands of the auditor and currently going through their quality control department. After they approve it, it will be turned over to us for sharing and dissemination to the public. Mr. President, that completes my mayor's message, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Next item on the agenda is President Council. Just want to inform the public, there was an informational executive session of council was held on Saturday, January 20th at 9:30 a.m. to discuss the items on the agenda tonight, as well as inform council on the clerical error that was made. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It's the Finance Committee. Finance Committee includes Vice President Heyman. Members include Councilor Billups, Minnick, and Andruska. Vice President Heyman.
Thank you, President Tunis. We have one item on the agenda tonight. It's the introduction of ordinance number 3151. I'd like to make a motion at this time to introduce and advertise. Sorry, ordinance 3151. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Prior to the motion, can I just please, prior to addressing the motion, can I please have a reading for the ordinance? Republic.
All right, I'm just gonna read the therefore portion of the ordinance unless anyone wants to. Therefore, the ordained ordinance, number 3149 shall be amended as follows. Section 1, the tax fee, and the same is hereby levied on all properties and occupations that live in the township, subject to taxation for the township purposes for the fiscal year 2024 as follows. Tax rate for general fund purposes, the sum of 13.56 mils for each $1,000 of assessed valuation, or the sum of 0.01356 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation of real property. For debt purposes, is 0.46 on each $1,000 of assessed valuation, or the sum of 0.0046 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation on real property. The same is summarized as follows. There's a chart here which memorializes exactly what I said. There is section 2, providing for the fees for collection and disposal of refuse set forth in section 461-18 of the Code of Ordinances. The owner of record of any residence building shall be charged a sum of $315 for each dwelling unit contained in said residence building for the collection of refuse from the residence building. Section 3, increasing the sewer rates and charges set forth in section 4541A of the Code of Ordinances for the said rental or charge based upon the following rates in accordance with the following classifications. 1, single-family dwelling unit, $275. Apartment unit, $275. Apartment house for each apartment unit, $275. Public business, commercial, or industrial users for the first $60,000 gallons of water annually, $275. Amending section 454-1B, public businesses, commercial, or industrial users shall pay at the rate of $275 per unit. There's a severability and an inconsistency clause, and it talks about the officers of council.
Okay, thank you, Solicitor Kilkenny. A motion has been introduced by Vice President, a motion to introduce and advertise ordinance 3151 has been made by Vice President Hayman and duly seconded by Councilor Minnick. I will now open the floor for discussion. Council members, I'm asking to please wait until you're recognized before you speak. So is there any discussion from any council members? Councilor Blackwell.
Just for the public record, can you give an example? So if a home is worth $50,000, what would they have to pay for the debt purposes for the millage of 13.56?
I personally don't know that information. I don't know.
There
Is that something we can get, maybe like use an example for the public just so they have an idea?
Right.
Ready for the public hearing next week?
Yeah, just to
Right,
have prepared.
So that when they come to ask me, like, how does that impact them? Because they're gonna come. We have like,
Yes, I'm happy to
Thank you.
work with Diane Scudi to have those examples ready.
Thank you, Acting CAO Dobbins. Councilor Wentz.
I just want to clarify that when it comes to the tax assessment of the tax levy, it's not broken down in that way. It's the total amount that all residents per household will be charged, not specific to the debt or the general. It's it all together is how their taxes will be assessed for the 14.02, just for clarification. So the breakdown is so that we know how much of that tax is going to pay the debt service, but the total amount at 14.02 is what the residents will be charged for their taxes.
based upon,
Councilor Wentz has the floor.
So I don't really understand why cents are involved on this ordinance. I've never seen a tax levy that included that section. That should really not be there, but it's normally, you multiply it by, like if your house is 100,000, right? You would multiply that 100,000 by the 14, by 0.0 .01402, and then you would get what your taxes would be.
Thank you for the clarification. For the public, I just want to make sure that they understand.
Sure.
I don't have to wait.
Counselor Hayman? This is
Yes.
for ordinance 3151 to introduce and advertise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Hayman?
Yes.
Secretary Billups is a yes. Counselor Minnick?
Yes.
Counselor Wagner is excused. President Tunis?
Yes.
Counselor Banto?
Yes.
Counselor Brandis?
Yes.
Counselor Andrusco?
No.
Counselor Wentz?
No.
Counselor Silva?
No.
Counselor Blackwell?
Yes.
Okay, one excuse, 3 noes, and the rest are yes.
Also 7-3. Yes, by a vote of 7-3, ordinance 3151 has been introduced and will be advertised. A special meeting will be held on January 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. right here in this room to hold a public hearing on ordinance 3151. Thank you for your time this evening. Can I please get a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Kind of tied, so.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Hope you all have a great night.
We tied.
I'm gonna give it to Councilor Wentz.
Oh, she wants to meet with,